Eli Carter had never imagined that a single mission could change the fate of humanity. The tiny human diplomat sat in the sleek silver ship orbiting the Vrith homeworld, staring out at the swirling lavender clouds and the towering spires that stretched like fingers toward the sky. He could feel the weight of the galaxy pressing down on him. One wrong move, one wrong word, and Earth might be destroyed. The Vrith had cornered humanity. Their fleets were faster, stronger, and more advanced than anything humans had built. Every planet along the trade routes had fallen under their control, and Earth was next unless someone could convince them to stop. That someone was Eli? The door to the cabin slid open with a soft hiss. A figure entered, graceful and confident, moving like a predator who never needed to hide. Princess Lyra Vrith. Her skin shimmered with a faint blue glow. Her eyes a deep gold. Her presence made Eli's stomach twist with a strange mix of fear and awe. "You are late," she said, her voice smooth and melodic. "IE was reviewing the treaty," Eli stammered, forcing himself to stand straight. Humans were small, fragile, and slow compared to Vrith, but he had trained for this moment. "I want to be sure we have everything right." Lyra's eyes narrowed and she tilted her head. "You think a treaty can stop the Vrith? You think words matter more than strength?" Eli swallowed hard. "Sometimes words matter more than weapons. If we can find a way to work together..." Lyra cut him off with a dismissive wave. "Humans are clever, I will admit. But cleverness alone will not save your planet." Eli felt the familiar weight of doubt settle in his chest. The entire galaxy believed the Vrith were unstoppable. But humans had a different kind of strength. One that relied not on brute force or advanced technology, but on adaptability, empathy, ingenuity. A chime echoed in the cabin, interrupting their tense conversation. Eli jumped. That's Lyra's lips curved into a small, unreadable smile. "It's time. Come with me, or are you afraid?" He hesitated, then followed. The corridors of the Virith Palace were like nothing he had ever seen. The walls seemed alive, pulsing with a soft light that responded to their movements. The air smelled faintly of something sweet and electric, and the ceiling arched high above them, lost in shadows. At the throne room, dozens of Vrith nobles watched silently as the two approached. Eli felt the familiar heat of fear rise in his body. He was a human, fragile and small, and yet here he was, standing before beings whose weapons could destroy cities with a thought. Lyra raised her hand, and the room fell completely silent. "Today we do something unusual," she said. "Something no human or Vrith has ever done. To end a war, sometimes we must create a bond." Eli frowned. "Bond." Lyra's golden eyes locked onto his. "A marriage. A symbolic union between you and me." The words hit him like a shockwave, stumbled back a step. "Marriage? But do not speak yet," Lyra interrupted. "It is not a real marriage. If that is what you fear, it is. A ritual. A promise of peace. If you refuse, the war continues, and your planet may not survive." Eli's mind raced. A fake marriage? He had negotiated peace. He had argued, bargained, and persuaded, but never had he imagined something like this. And yet, looking at her, the sharpness in her eyes, the calm authority in her voice, he knew there was no choice. Humanity's survival rested on this strange ceremonial union. He nodded slowly. "All right. If it saves Earth, I will do it." Lyra's smile was small but approving. Then let the ritual begin. The ceremony was nothing like Eli expected. There was no priest, no loud music, no vows. Instead, the room was filled with the quiet hum of alien technology and the watchful gaze of every Vrith noble. They moved through intricate steps, exchanging gestures that were unfamiliar but somehow meaningful. Eli felt clumsy, human, out of place, but he followed Lyra's lead. She guided him with patience, correcting his mistakes without a word, and he began to understand why she was the future queen. When the final gesture was complete, Lyra turned to the assembly. "Let it be known that this union is a symbol of peace. Let it be known that Earth and the Vrith may now look toward a future without war." A murmur ran through the room, half awe, half disbelief. Eli felt a rush of relief, but it was short-lived. Lyra's eyes met his, and he saw a spark of challenge there. This was not over. Somehow he knew she would not let this ritual be just a performance. The next hours were filled with tense negotiations. Eli had expected to be sidelined, to stand quietly while Vrith leaders discussed the treaty. Instead, Lyra involved him directly. She asked his opinions, tested his knowledge, and even allowed him to suggest modifications to the treaty clauses. To Eli's surprise, the Vrith listened. They respected clever ideas, and humans had a strange ability to think outside predictable patterns. When one noble attempted to undermine the treaty, Rhea reacted on instinct. He suggested a small technological compromise, something simple, something human that neutralized the noble's objections without violating Vrith principles. The room fell silent. Then slowly, heads nodded. Lyra's golden eyes met his, and for the first time, she smiled openly. "You are clever, human. I see now why our leaders agreed to this alliance." Eli felt pride, but also exhaustion. His body was tense, his mind racing with the consequences of every choice. Still, as he looked around the throne room, he felt a glimmer of hope. Perhaps humans could survive this war. Perhaps humans could even thrive. Later, in the quiet of the Vrith Palace, Lyra led Eli to a balcony overlooking the alien city. The sun, or what humans called a sun, was low in the lavender sky, casting long shadows over the towers. "You did well today," she said softly. "Better than I expected." Eli chuckled nervously. "I didn't want to fail. For Earth, for everyone." Lyra's gaze softened. "That is what I like about humans. You do not always have the power. You do not always have the strength. But you do not give up. You find a way. You adapt." Eli felt a warmth in his chest. Humans had survived countless threats, and he had always believed in their resilience. But hearing it from Lyra, seeing it acknowledged by someone so powerful, it made him feel more human than ever before. The night passed with quiet conversation. They discussed human customs, Vrith rituals, and the strange humor that Eli tried to explain. Lyra laughed, a sound like wind over Meadowland. Eli realized that beneath her alien exterior, she was curious, playful, and intelligent. When he finally returned to his quarters, Eli lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The fake marriage had ended the war, yes, but now there was a new problem. Princess Lyra had her own mind, her own ideas, and somehow he had to navigate this fragile alliance without causing offense or worse, reigniting the war. As he drifted into a restless sleep, he realized something. Humans were small, fragile, and often underestimated, but in moments like this, they could change the fate of worlds. And perhaps, just perhaps, he and Lyra were more alike than different. The galaxy had watched them take the first step. The war was over, but the story of their alliance, the real story, was only beginning. Days passed on the Vrith homeworld, and Eli found himself living a life that was both strange and fascinating. The palace was enormous, a labyrinth of glowing corridors, floating stairways, and chambers filled with alien devices that seemed to respond to thought. Humans had never built anything like it. Yet as overwhelming as it was, Eli noticed something remarkable. Vrith technology was powerful, but it often relied on rigid rules. Humans, he realized, could bend rules, adapt quickly, improvise in ways no Vrith could predict. Princess Lyra was always nearby, sometimes watching him closely, sometimes teasing him quietly. At first, Eli felt awkward under her gaze. He was a human, and she was a being of advanced intellect and skill. A princess who could command fleets and sway councils with a flick of her hand. But slowly, their interactions began to change. One morning, Lyra appeared at his quarters with a small device in her hand. "You are awake," she said, her golden eyes sparkling. "Good. I need your opinion." Eli blinked. "My opinion?" Lyra held the device out. "It is a communication module. One of our systems for monitoring human colonies on nearby planets. It malfunctions. I need a human mind to see what is wrong." Eli hesitated. He had never worked with alien technology before, but he studied it carefully. It looks like the energy flow is blocked in this section. If you redirect power here, it should work. Lyra watched silently as he carefully adjusted the module. When it powered on successfully, she raised an eyebrow. Clever. You humans really do think differently. Most Veeth would have tried to force it to work with brute energy. You found a subtle solution, Eli smiled, a little embarrassed. I guess. We just try to find another way when the first way doesn't work. She studied him for a moment, and sometimes that makes all the difference. That evening, they walked together through the gardens of the palace. The air was filled with the scent of alien flowers that shimmered in colors Eli had no names for. The Vrith didn't need sunlight as humans did. They enjoyed the beauty it created. You are improving, Lyra said casually. Yesterday in the council meeting, you suggested a compromise that even I had not considered. Humans are unpredictable, but useful. Eli laughed softly. I just try to think about what makes sense. For both sides, you know. Peace is worth the effort. Lyra's gaze softened. You have spirit? I see why the Vrith accepted this ritual. You are more than a symbol, Eli Carter. Eli felt warmth in his chest. For all her alien elegance, Lyra's words carried honesty. Humans had always survived by relying on courage, creativity, and empathy, and here she acknowledged it. Maybe, just maybe, humans could earn respect even from the most advanced civilizations, but peace was fragile. One day, a report came that a faction of Vrith extremists had sabotaged a supply line, hoping to start a new war. Eli was called to the council chamber, where Lyra, the council, and several military commanders waited. You are sure of this information? Lyra asked. Yes, Princess, the Vrith commander replied. A human cannot detect all signs, but these sensors are clear. Someone wants the war to resume. Eli's mind raced. Humans might not have Vrith's strength or speed, but they excelled in thinking creatively under pressure. We need a solution that stops them without breaking the peace treaty, he said aloud. Lyra tilted her head. What do you suggest? Eli took a deep breath. We can reroute the supply line temporarily using mobile containers. They can be transported faster and disguised. It's risky, but it prevents the extremists from causing panic and keeps civilians safe. The Vrith looked doubtful. A human plan? One commander asked, frowning. Lyra's golden eyes met Eli's. Do it, she said simply. I trust him. The operation began immediately. Eli directed Vrith engineers, adapting their systems in ways no Vrith had imagined. The containers were moved swiftly and quietly, hidden in plain sight. When the extremists tried to strike, they found nothing to sabotage. Eli's plan had worked. Afterward, Lyra approached him privately. You saved lives today, Eli. Again, with nothing but your mind and human ingenuity. Eli shrugged. I just looked for a way. That's all humans know how to do. Lyra laughed softly. Sometimes that is enough. As the days went by, their bond grew. They shared meals, trained in ceremonial combat for appearances, and spent long hours in conversation. Lyra was curious about Earth, about humanity's history, about the struggles and triumphs of a species that survived against impossible odds. Eli told her stories of explorers, scientists, and inventors of humans building machines, crossing oceans, flying into space, and landing on the moon. Lyra listened, fascinated. Humans are remarkable, she said one evening. You survive because you adapt. You succeed because you persist. You do not rely on raw strength alone, Eli smiled. That's all we have, and it's worked so far. Their relationship was still technically a fake marriage, but slowly, the line between duty and genuine care blurred. Eli noticed Lyra laughing at his jokes, teasing him when he stumbled through Vrith customs, and seeking his advice even when protocol said she should act alone. Lyra noticed his courage, his empathy, and the way he could remain calm in impossible situations. One night, while inspecting a communications tower outside the palace, they were ambushed by a small group of extremists. Eli and Lyra had to work together fast. She could fight with precision and power, while he used human tactics, unpredictability, and quick thinking to create openings. Eli ducked under a Vrith's strike and shouted, "Use the tower. Its energy field can shield us." Lyra hesitated only for a heartbeat, then nodded. Together, they activated the tower, deflecting the attackers. Their combination of human adaptability and Vrith skill turned the ambush into a failure. Afterward, Lyra looked at him, a mix of admiration and something else she didn't hide. "Humans, you are fearless in ways we cannot understand. You improvise, adapt, and survive. You are extraordinary." Eli's heart raced. "I thank you. That means a lot coming from you." From that night on, something had shifted. Their fake marriage had grown into an unspoken partnership. Trust formed, respect deepened, and a quiet connection emerged that neither could ignore. However, Eli knew the world outside the palace was still dangerous. The extremists hadn't vanished. Political factions within the Vrith were uneasy with peace. Earth depended on him. And yet, despite the weight of duty, he realized that Lyra had become more than an ally, more than a symbol. She was a person he could rely on, perhaps even a friend. As he gazed at the lavender sky from the palace gardens, he whispered to himself, "We ended the war. But the real challenge is keeping it that way." And Lyra, standing beside him, did not disagree. The war was over. The skies above Earth and the Vrith homeworld were quiet, free from the roar of ships and the blaze of weapons. The peace treaty, sealed by the strange symbolic marriage between Eli Carter and Princess Lyra, had held. For now, humanity was safe, but peace was never simple. Eli sat in the palace library, a towering chamber filled with glowing scrolls and floating devices that contained all the knowledge of the Vrith. He had spent hours studying the latest reports, analyzing trade routes, and preparing to return to Earth. His mission had been successful, his duty accomplished, and yet he felt a strange unease. Lyra entered silently, her golden eyes fixed on him. She moved with the grace of someone who had been trained all her life to command. Yet there was a softness in her expression that Eli had never seen before. "You are leaving soon," she said. "Yes," Eli replied. "The peace treaty is complete. Earth will be safe. My part here is done." Lyra stepped closer, her gaze intense. "Is it really done? Or do you think this?" This union was only a tool, something to manipulate the Vrith Council. Eli hesitated. It was meant to be temporary, a ritual. But it worked. The war ended. "And now?" she asked, her voice quiet but firm. "Do you leave as if nothing else matters?" Eli looked away, feeling the weight of her stare. He had grown fond of Lyra not just as an ally, but as a person. Her intelligence, her courage, and even her sharp humor had captured his respect. But he reminded himself, this was temporary. Humans had their home to return to, duties to fulfill, lives to resume. Lyra sighed, a sound like wind over metal. "I will not let you go, Eli. Not yet. Not when we have just begun to understand each other." Eli froze. He had expected gratitude, respect, perhaps even warmth, but not this. "Lyra, you have changed things here," she interrupted. "You have shown us humans can adapt, can think differently, can inspire trust and hope. I cannot simply let you leave. You belong here. It's with me." With us, Eli's mind raced. He knew that what she said carried weight. The Vrith respected power, influence, and wisdom. If Lyra wanted him to stay, it could mean a permanent alliance, a bond that transcended the political ritual. But leaving Earth? Leaving humanity? That was impossible. Before he could answer, a warning alarm echoed through the palace. Red lights pulsed across the walls. Eli and Lyra ran to the main observation chamber, where holographic screens showed a fleet of rogue Vrith ships approaching the capital. The extremists had not disappeared. They were attempting a final strike to discredit the treaty and claim the throne. Eli, Lyra said urgently. We need a plan. Eli's mind raced. The extremists were fast, well-armed, and desperate. Humans might not have the raw strength of the Vrith, but they could think, improvise, and act unpredictably. He glanced at Lyra. We combine your skill with my strategy. We can outsmart them. Lyra raised an eyebrow. You are sure a human mind can handle this? I have to try, Eli said firmly. For both our peoples? They moved quickly. Eli directed Vrith engineers and soldiers, using human tactics they had never seen before. He suggested feints, decoys, and electronic disruptions that confused the attackers. Lyra, with her combat expertise, led the defense personally, taking the most dangerous positions. Together, they coordinated a plan that relied on humans' adaptability and creativity. Combined with Vrith, power, and precision, the battle began. Rogue ships swooped in, weapons blazing. Vrith defenders fired back, but Eli's strategy kept the extremists off balance. He ordered smaller ships to appear as decoys, leading the enemy into false targets. Then, he guided Lyra to a strategic position above the city, where she used her energy field to trap the largest attackers. Now, Eli shouted, redirect the energy surge. Lyra acted instantly, focusing the field and amplifying it with the city's generators. The rogue ships were forced to retreat, their systems overloaded by the unexpected human tactic. Cheers erupted among the Vrith defenders. The extremists had failed, defeated not by brute force alone, but by a combination of human ingenuity and Vrith power. After the battle, Lyra looked at Eli, her expression unreadable. Then she spoke, her voice soft. You saved us again. Humans are extraordinary. Not just your species, but you personally. I cannot imagine letting you leave now. Eli swallowed hard. He had faced death, war, and impossible challenges. But this moment, this confrontation of heart and duty, was harder than anything he had ever known. Lyra, I want to help. I want to stay. But Earth, I cannot abandon them. Lyra stepped closer, placing her hand on his arm. And you do not need to abandon them. You have shown that humans and Vrith can work together. You have shown that our worlds can be united. I am asking, stay here with me and help build that future. Not as a human diplomat, not as a puppet of a ritual, but as a partner. If you refuse, the alliance may falter. Eli felt a surge of emotion. Humans had survived because they cared, because they could make choices, because they adapted to impossible situations. And now, Lyra was giving him a choice, not just of duty, but of heart. He took a deep breath. Then I will stay. But not for power, not for ceremony. I will stay because I believe in the future we can build together. Lyra's golden eyes shone. Then let us begin. Together. The following days were filled with planning, rebuilding, and preparation. Eli worked alongside Lyra to strengthen the alliance, using his human perspective to find solutions to political, technological, and cultural challenges. He introduced new trade systems, proposed educational exchanges, and suggested ways humans and Vrith could share knowledge. Every step reminded him of humanity's strengths, creativity, empathy, perseverance. And every step reminded him of Lyra's brilliance, courage, and growing affection for him. Their bond was no longer a ritual. It was real. It was trust, respect, and perhaps something deeper. One evening, as they watched the twin moons rise over the Lavender City, Lyra spoke quietly. You know, Eli, when I first met you, I thought humans were fragile, temporary. Now I see. Humans are strong in ways we cannot always measure. You adapt. You survive. You inspire. Eli smiled, feeling the warmth of those words. That's all we can do. And sometimes, we surprise even ourselves. Lyra laughed softly. Yes, and you have surprised me. The months passed. Eli and Lyra continued to strengthen the alliance between their peoples, prevent uprisings, and navigate the challenges of diplomacy. They shared victories, frustrations, and quiet moments of understanding. And in every challenge, Eli's humanity, his courage, creativity, and empathy proved to be an invaluable asset. Through it all, Lyra refused to let him go. She saw in him not just a diplomat, but a partner, an equal, and a bridge between worlds. And Eli realized that humans had always survived by forming bonds, trusting one another, and rising to challenges no one else could imagine. The final test had come and passed. Humanity had proven its worth, not through weapons or technology alone, but through the qualities that made them human. And for Eli, the greatest victory was not just saving Earth, but finding a place where he belonged, beside someone who respected him, challenged him, and most surprisingly wanted him to stay. The fake marriage had ended the war, but in its place, something far more powerful had begun, a true partnership, a symbol of unity, and a promise that humans and Vrith could build a future together, wiser and united. Eli looked at Lyra, and she smiled back. The galaxy was wide and dangerous, but for the first time, he felt that humanity could face it not alone, but together. And that, he thought, was the greatest victory of